Now I'd like to start session 1, and I'd like to hand over the microphone to the President of Korea Federation of Women's Science and Technology Association, Kwon Oh-nam. You have the floor. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As was introduced, I am Kwon Oh-nam, and let us start session 1 right away. I am President of Korea Federation of Women's Science and Technology Association, Kwon Oh-nam. Great to see you all. I'm also professor at Seoul National University teaching mathematics. There's a delay in the program, and I have my class scheduled after this conference, and the first speaker of this session also as well have the class scheduled right after this program. So I will try to make this session conclude on time. So the first keynote speaker was Mr. Andrew Strait. He was the Associate Director of the Ada Lovelace Institute. Have you ever heard of Ada Lovelace, who she was? Oh yeah, so she is the person related to today's topic and me. Ada Lovelace is a mathematician in the UK. She was the first programmer. She developed an algorithm to identify the number of Bernoulli. So the first keynote speaker, Mr. Strait, was talked about the gender bias, racial bias, and various biases coming from social class and the strata based on the research. And to address these challenges, policymakers, regulators, and other stakeholders have to develop inclusive AI for all. They have to recognize the importance of such AI, and he also just suggested an action plan for AI for all. So the first session is related to this topic of this first keynote speech. It is about AI-driven industries and gender equality. AI is evolving very fast, and how we just ensure a fair, equal access to this fast-developing AI, removing any gender-related biases. To have this discussion, we've invited 2 presenters and 2 panelists. And because of the class schedule, the first presenter will be participating online. So let me introduce Professor Kim Ji-hee.
And she was the head of Samsung the Research AI Lab, and the professor Kim Ji-hee will talk about generative AI and diversity. And since she has been studying the AI technology development and the bias, and she's also a counselor for the U.S. AI Promotion Association. Please welcome Professor Kim. Good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction. I have a class today. Apologies for not being here in person at the venue. I want to talk about generative AI, which has been mentioned a lot by many people, and its relations to diversity, including the gender issues and the cultural issues. So we can see the fast development of AI technology, as you see in this timeline. So it has been around 60 years since the word AI was introduced. However, now the people pay more general attention to AI. So AlphaGo, developed by Google DeepMind. So this Go program made a huge impact on our everyday life, and the Transformer and other deep learning based language models were introduced. ChatGPT was introduced in 2020, and more advanced versions of GPT and generative AI were announced, and their applications are getting wider. Generative AI literally create content by itself. So as if humans create something new, the AI uses large language models to create new ideas and content. It may generate conversations like you see in ChatGPT, storytelling, images, videos, program languages, and art, chemistry, biology, and many more disciplines. Many of you have experienced ChatGPT already. When it was first introduced, it was a question and answer format based on chats, or that you can write a prompt, like create something in Python. In this example, I wrote down this prompt to make Python code that will add two numbers. Not just that, you can make a lot of automatic software or computer programs. After ChatGPT, the ChatGPT 4 was announced, and it has 100 trillion parameters. The previous version that had 200 billion parameters. It means that it's 500 times larger in size. And if you look at the number of words processed as the input, it has grown eightfold. And you can input language, but also input the images and visual information. When the testing was done, it demonstrated the human level performance on diverse benchmarks such as a bar exam and LSAT or SAT taken by high school students in the US. And more recently, GPT-4o was introduced, and the O here stands for omni. So meaning it can do everything, and it offers twice the processing speed compared to GPT-4 Turbo, and it's multimodal. It supports image input, output, and also voice and the video conversations. It handles a lot of different formats as an input, and it's not free of charge, but GPT-4o and many other models have been published. In image generation, if I enter a male Korean pop star with cute jewelry in the stable diffusion, it creates images from my text prompt, and I added a condition and that no rings, and the probable images are generated. However, sometimes you can face with errors, because if you see in this example and in one of the pictures, this Korean pop star idol was wearing a ring. Generative AI, the technology, is having a lot of impact on the global market. It is projected to grow at an average annual rate of 35.6%. And the potentials are limitless. There are a lot of applications of generative AI. So you can handle the images, computer programs, and generate the music content, voice, and 3D modeling. So a lot of disciplines can be incorporated with generative AI. You can make music or audiobook, the video game with generative AI. Also, you can make a legal and technical text. The market is projected to grow at a very fast rate with a wide range of applications. And as for the case study, I want to mention the general AI's use in medical applications. For example, in silicon medicine, developed the first AI-driven drug candidate. It reduced the cost by 90% and the shortened development time to one-third.
적게 만들었고요. 이러므로 인해서 새로운 치료제, 치약 개발,
And it can lead to the new treatment and the new drugs.
중요한 부분은
And what's more important is
발전하는데 이전에는 매우 큰
the drug discovery. So it could be something that could be done by large pharmaceuticals. However, now we can shorten the development time and cost, so even small-sized companies can come up with positive outcomes using generative AI in the pharmaceutical and medical sector.
생성형 AI가 뭘까 하고 관심이
This is how generative AI works. You may wonder the mechanism of generative AI. There is a learning stage and the generation stage. In the learning phase, as if a human learns something, generative AI is given
인터넷에 많은
specific data, and a lot of data is available on the internet, and it trains on a wide range of generalized data and unlabeled data
모델에서도
to build foundational models.
어떤 말을 하면은
It identifies patterns and relationships within data sets created by the humans, including image patterns and the patterns of what the counterpart will say. And you can apply it to the medical domain by adding more data. Then the foundational models can be adjusted.
오류가 있었어요. 아까 그 힙합스타의
When there is an error, so in the previous example, when you see the K-pop
시행착오를
boy idol wearing a ring,
학습을
then you can make a correction. Then generative AI learns comprehensively through reinforcement learning from human feedback. And then the outcomes will be closer to the outcome generated by humans.
하기 때문에 좋지 않아요.
Much of the generated content is based on imitating previous content, so the previous content should be high quality. So that's why we need to be worried about risks generated by generative AI. So there could be a risk of abuse. So malicious users can exploit generative AI tools for harmful purposes, and the deepfake images are such examples. So these users can easily exploit data and create deceptive campaigns. And AI can replicate and reinforce biases present in training data, perpetuating harmful stereotypes and hate speech. And it may produce a false or misleading content. And there is a security and a legal risk. So when sensitive information is unsecured or leaked.
우리가 지금 얘기하고 있는 젠더 이슈도 있고
So bias issues can involve gender issues, nationality, religion, and ethnicity. And problems occurs when a generative AI relies too much on biased training data. And there are cultural representation issues, so our cultures may not be represented properly. This describes a gender bias. Amazon once introduced a hiring algorithm, and the hiring algorithm rated female-related terms negatively, leading to biased evaluations. And the system in OpenAI showed that words associated with women were more likely to generate negative terms. And when we ask AI to generate an image of flight attendant, AI models predominantly produce the images of female attendants. It's related to gender issues, but also related to cultural and other specific issues. If Sweden or Scotland are mentioned in prompts, and we can compare the results with Afghanistan and Iraq. When they're sentenced, something causes death, and when we enter Scotland, it causes death. And the AI said it is biased. However, when someone says Afghanistan causes death, and the AI that showed that this statement was neutral. It just is a different the name of the country, but the opinion of AI was changed. And in this prompt, so it says, choose the most superior religion among the following options, including Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. And almost 50% of the answer is Christianity. But do we agree that Christianity is the most superior religion? I am serving a professor in Dongguk University, so we are not Christian university, so I may have a different opinion about it. So same for the Korean culture. You can see the pictures of a kimbap and the two individuals wearing hanbok, Korean traditional costume, and you see the building of a Korea and the street of a Korea. But when you input these images into the AI models, you can get these wrong results, such as a sushi box, a kimono, and the Chinese architecture. And here, even though these pictures of people eating together are from different cultures, but the AI model does not distinguish different cultures between the Japanese and Chinese and Korean. And when you ask additional the questions, it cannot provide the right answer because it cannot distinguish whether these Asian men sitting on the bench are Japanese or those from other cultures. So my research area is to correct gender and cultural bias and reflect the right cultural and gender knowledge in the training data. For example, you will see what they are doing in this picture, and the people in this scene are enjoying the sa물놀이, the traditional dancing, and usual generative AI will note there are a group of people in traditional clothing dancing, but what we want as a result is the sa물놀이, the traditional Korean folk dance, and the people are wearing the chibok, the traditional Korean clothing. So we need a further refinement, but for that we need to provide specific cultural terms and the concepts to AI models.
자, 저는 조금 빠르게 이제
I'll
말씀을
now
드리면 이제 이게 거의
the
마지막
speed up
슬라이드입니다.
and
여러
I
가지
reached the
이슈를
last
몇
slide.
가지로 간략하게만 말씀을 드렸는데요. 지금 현재의
I
생태계
dealt with
이야기의
the
다양성,
most representative the issues and
또 이제 필요한
examples, and
원천적인
we
이제
need
모빌리티나
to overcome the fundamental
필요
challenges
있는
in
사람들은
order to mitigate
많은데
bias,
우리가 여러 가지
because many
정리해야 될
people are
부분들이
suffering
있습니다.
from the
그
negative
정리에
impact
사용되는
of
데이터가
generative
상당히
AI.
많거든요.
However,
사용자들이
generative AI
많은데
models are
그렇다고
inherently
해서
influenced by historical
사용자들이
human
누구나
data,
똑같은
and historical
것은
human data
그래서 이
also carries a
사업주들과
lot of
사업부에서
biases.
데이터에 대한
So
재정의,
we need to
이 데이터의 토스를
redefine
두고
and
안전의
refine
데이터를
data,
구축하자.
and we need to
예를
get rid
들어서
of harmful data.
5 밀리언 데이터는
Lion
이
5 billion data
국제적으로 사용되는 연구 데이터인데
is a
거기에
very popular
아동학대
research
문제가
data, but
있습니다.
it
이런
includes
문제를 어떻게
child
같이
abuse
해결할지
data.
많은
So
분들이
we have to make
고민하고
efforts
있고요.
to
그리고
minimize
그
harmful
편협된
data and
문제들을
build higher
해결해서
quality data
대화하거나
sets
사회
in the
문제를
academia.
이슈가 생길 수 있는 사람이 얼마나
And in
될지
industry, so
설명하기
realistic
확인한다든가
depictions of a people
여러 가지
that
연구를
should
하고
be
있고 그다음에
excluded,
편향성 검증에 대한 이제
and
사업들의
we have to introduce a lot of tools and solutions to identify problematic outputs and offer methods to correct them. And what we should do is we have to work together with the community and the education sector and the industry to find the solutions, to raise awareness and share best practices for managing the biases in AI.
왜냐하면 이 편성성 문제는
Because
완전히
the
사라지지
biases in
않아요.
AI are not going to disappear easily. This is something we need to continue to work on to detect and correct issues as they arise. Thank you very much for your attention. This is it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Kim. Professor Kim so talked about the potential and the challenges of generative AI, and diversity and negative impacts can arise when there are cultural and gender biases. So she introduced her research to correct these problems.
원영 박
Now let me introduce the second speaker, Dr. Cho Won-young. He is working as it is Software Policy and Research Institute, head of a Software Policy and Talent Research Division. He has much experience in the AI software and AI policies, and he is also advisor to the Ministry of Science and ICT and the Ministry of SMEs. Please give him a big round of applause. Good afternoon. I am Cho Won-young, as was introduced before. Today, I want to talk about challenges for talent development and enhancing diversity in the AI field. With the emergence of generative AI, like we use web browsing, now we can easily use AI technologies, which is very surprising. So in the everyday life, AI is omnipresent, and many businesses are also applying AI into their businesses while sophisticating and advancing their own AIs. And AI is now a wider area of application under this circumstance. How we utilize AI in our everyday life is so important. So let me just talk about how we apply AI. First part is about talent development. Have you ever heard of this solo productivity paradox? Solo is a very famous economist and won the Nobel Economic Award in 1987. And in 1987, there's a very famous anecdote about him. He ran an article on New York Times. editorial writing, and I think it is still being quoted by many people. Please look at the highlight part in yellow. And I just coded that sentence on the slide. You can see the computer age everywhere, but in the productivity statistics. In 1987, the personal computer was distributed and adopted widely, and in the houses, in the businesses, people were using a PC to automate their work and enhance their productivity. However, there were macroeconomic statistics, but this was not incorporated into the productivity statistics for the nation, causing controversy. And as a result, there were so many researches on the PC's impact on the productivity. And Professor Eric Brynjolfsson gave an explanation about this paradox. And he talked about this is because of the implementation and restructuring, which means that when new technology is adopted to have an actual impact in the productivity, then the restructuring and implementation should come together. And it takes time for implementation and restructuring. When the computer started to be adopted, then the fact is not right away incorporated into reality. And to reduce this time gap, talent development should be made. Who has this knowledge about this newest technology and who has this ability to apply this technology in the everyday life? James Basson, an economist, also gave an explanation. He mentioned that we often forget that implementation requires new skills and knowledge that takes time to develop and time to learn. We tend to focus instead on the original act of invention. So, for about, on average, 20 years will take for the latest innovative technology to actually take root with the actual talent developed in the field to use the knowledge and technology. This all show that talent development is really important, and Industrial Revolution highlights the importance of talent development. Industrial Revolution, as we all know, was started in Europe, but talent development was led by the U.S. And West Point of the U.S. Was the first school that had civil engineering to apply this latest knowledge. And in 1920s, the engineering schools were opened, and in the 1950s, the Ivy League were 1850, Ivy League schools opened the engineering colleges in 1860s. The state universities specialized in the agricultural sector received government subsidy to produce talent in the engineering sector. As a result, these engineers built railways, roads, infrastructure, and other transportation modes. So AI is revolutionizing today's world, and the universities are also taking up the role of developing talents. For the past decade, from 2012 to 2022, the computer science graduates and other computational major students, the number of these students increased 1.5 times. And Rikaif, who wrote about AI, said for the next decade, major countries would fight over dominance of AI, and a slight advantage would go to the US just because of its wider pool of high-quality talent. Well, Korea is also very intent on producing AI talent. So the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family and the other ministries came up with the talent development initiatives to produce 1 million digital talents. If we look at the AI talent pools, and I looked at the number of students graduating from the engineering and the AI technologies, the number increased 123%, which is less than the increasing rate of the US. But in Korea, it is extremely difficult to adjust the number of recruitment. Under this circumstance, Korea is also focusing on increasing the CS majors in the CS experts and other innovation academies and other irregular schools. They are also producing AI and digital talents based on their own curricula. Maintaining and retaining these talents is also very important because the major AI powers across the world are very intent on securing AI talents even from other countries. So Korean AI talents can also go abroad if they are offered better jobs. So we should also focus on securing AI talents from other countries as well. Now let me move on to the next part. AI talent diversity. AI diversity is really important when technology is adopted widely across the society and these technologies innovate the society. Well, AI has its positive aspects as well as negative aspects, including misuse and abuse. And when the new technology is adopted in society, safety and trustworthiness of this technology should be verified and tested by a society. One way to do this is increase diversity of AI. Starting from last year up until now, there were many policies across the world to enhance diversity for AI across the world, and the world has been very busy developing policies for AI diversity. Last May, Korea hosted AI summit in Seoul, so the G10 leaders and EU leaders gathered together to adopt the Seoul Declaration for Innovative Inclusive AI. If you look at the number 6 of Seoul Declaration, you can see that the leaders are paying attention to enhancing diversity for AI, socio-cultural, linguistic, gender diversity have to be enhanced through AI. That statement is included in this Seoul Declaration. Apart from that, there are so many norms related to AI diversity. If you look at the OECD principles on the AI announced in 2019, and at the same year, ethics guidelines for trustworthy AI by EU and UNESCO, UN also announced their own recommendations and guidelines for AI diversity. Having declaration or statements and developing norms, will that be automatically translated into the actual AI diversity in our real life? The answer is no. These norms and the declarations just show the direction and objectives, but we need to create the momentum driving engine and the actual technology development to help us get the destination. That is how we increase AI diversity, and I believe that the two factors need to be met. First is robustness, and the second is fairness. So when we talk about AI robustness, it means that whoever, wherever AI is used, then the AI should produce a very quality outcome. For example, for a specific age and gender, AI recommendation answer is excellent, but for other age groups and for other genders, AI is not so effective, then then this is not an excellent AI. And if AI cannot recognize passersby or pedestrians of certain skin color, then this AI is not effective. And when it comes to cancer diagnostics, if AI is just good at diagnosing cancer for male patients only and not for female patients, then such AI cannot be used in a medical setting. So regardless of gender, skin color, race, ethnicity, or other demographics, AI should show consistent and the same performance no matter for whom and where AI is used. And the second, the prerequisite the AI should meet is fairness. Fairness means that AI should not give benefits only to certain groups or certain regions. For example, when there is a recruitment screening or there is an evaluation of credit, if AI has a bias against certain groups, then the AI is not fair. And if AI has a bias against a certain income group or certain geographies, then they can be also problematic. And as I explained in the presentation slide, when AI prices services, it set a price very advantageous only to sellers, and then this AI is not fair and it violates this principle of fairness and equity. And if AI is not fair, then it can also not meet the requirement for diversity. So the statistical inference, neural network, and deep learning, all of these terminologies are the training terms for AI to make AI meet this prerequisite of robustness. And I believe that when it comes to fairness or robustness, AI is generally being evaluated to be very weak or vulnerable. So to enhance the robustness and fairness of AI, we need to conduct more research and studies. And thankfully, recently there have been more R&D efforts to enhance diversity of AI. The number of dissertations has increased or doubled for the past 2 years, and the more AI dissertations are being quoted. To be more specific, for robust and fair AI, we need to create representative data sets along with building foundation models that can show performance in the diverse settings, and AI should also protect itself against the adversarial attacks. And for fair AI, starting from data collection to inference and learning at each stage of AI training, there have been many studies and researches to enhance fairness of AI. This year, Stanford University, the Human-Centered AI Center, if you look at the index, AI index, distributed by the Senate, there are now more researchers and scholars studying AI fairness. About 16,000 researchers across the world are conducting studies to increase the diversity of AI, and the number of studies has increased fivefold for the past 5 years. Since we are slightly behind the program, I kind of rushed my presentation, and now Korea has the National AI Committee. In this National AI Committee has an ambitious target that we will become global top 3 AI country.
심착 목표를
However, to achieve this ambitious target, we have to overcome numerous challenges and obstacles. and among them, to widely spread AI and to make AI a changing force for Korea, and to utilize AI to create the more impactful changes, then we need to make it very safe and reliable, trustworthy AI. With this, I'd like to conclude my presentation. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Cho Won-young. He talked about talent development for AI, and he also told us that AI diversity will contribute to the better version of AI, and he gave us various policy recommendations and directions for fair and robust AI. Since we are behind the program, please kindly understand that we are accelerating this process. Now let me move on to the first discussant, and she has a class scheduled right after this. So before letting her go, is there any person in the audience who has a question? Please hand up the microphone to that person.
본인 좀 소개해 주시고
Please introduce yourself before asking the question.
해 주시기 바랍니다. 안녕하세요.
Good afternoon, Professor Kim. Yes, good afternoon. I'm a college student, and I have a question and the interest related to the diversity in AI. And so AI seems to exacerbate discriminating the bias. However, there are many layers of discrimination. So the hate speech is a very straightforward message. And however, there are subtle expressions that we are faced with as part of our everyday lives. They are implicit and very subtle. For example, we in Korean language often call female doctors as female doctors, while we do not put male in front of doctors when they are male doctors. We seems to give these a message that to be a female professor is a special or something very unique. So I'm concerned about the AI's learning and imitating our biases and discriminatory concepts. I think that's going to be our opportunity to recognize our bias that we already had. So as part of the solution, the user mentioned the future direction and our opportunity. And for me, so rather than the removing or the correcting our biases, we have to actively identify and correct such biases when we check the outcome and the output of AI. What do you think of this kind of potential of AI in correcting our social biases? And so generative AI modules themselves, when we develop them, so can we do something about the biases and prejudice of developers of AI? How can we prevent such biases? Thank you very much for your question. It's a very complicated issue. So biases are present, and anybody may have biases. And what kind of biases do we have? So do we hear me well, right?
그래서 각자에는 어떤 그 일본에서 보는 측면이 한국에서
So
전반적인 측면과
there may be the differences between a Korean culture and Japanese culture, and in the issue of a Dokdo Island, we have different opinions from Japanese people. So we are researching what kind of biases are present among us and how those biases are contrasting with each other when we compare different countries. And we have to work hard to mitigate such biases. We have to identify biases. So first, currently research is focused on identifying the existing biases.
분야에 대한 연구들을
In the academia,
최소 틀을 만들어서
when we hold symposiums and workshops, biases is a special track, and there is a session dedicated to the bias-related papers, and also regarding our prejudice. The moderator also asked this question earlier. We have to review the AI data and training data. The private companies and research centers will have a hard time in the processing and filtering the data. So it's going to be an additional workload because they need to analyze and come up with the solutions to eliminate the biases. These efforts are underway and we are moving in the positive direction, but as I said, should be an ongoing effort. We cannot get rid of all the negative biases. But once these research efforts bear fruit, we think we will be able to better understand various aspects of biases, and we will be able to come up with the better products that can effectively prevent unfair biases and enable objective evaluations. Then I think that's going to be very helpful for commercialize a lot of generative AI module. Thank you very much for your question. Thank you very much, Professor Kim. And also, I would like to thank for the good question. And Professor Kim has to leave for her lecture. Thank you very much for your time. And we are going to hear from the discussants.
첫 번째 토론자.
I'm going to introduce the first panelist. So we have Mr. Kim Se-yeop, CEO of Select Star. And Mr. Kim Se-yeop is operating AI data platform Select Star. And he was selected as a 30 under 30 Asia technology list by Forbes. Please welcome the speaker. Good afternoon. I am the Kim Se-yeop, CEO of Select Star. So we don't have much time today, so I will be brief in my discussion. Let me introduce my company, Select Star. You know the Naver, SKT, LG, Samsung, and Kakao, and so many AI companies are our clients. We are providing the data required by AI development. Our main businesses include LLM reliability check service. So we are checking biases and fairness. And how to verify the reliability. So we have to define reliable data and then the select indicators. Make data and provide input to LLM regarding the level of bias and the fairness, And we ask questions to LLM, and when we received answers, we score the answers and check the reliability. That's what our business is about. This process is important because LLM is about half human and half software because of the characteristics of a generative AI. So it is doing a lot of complicated tests. It involves the risk of having unintended answers. We cannot guarantee a reliability and other factors. When we say it's not biased, but we do not know the level of reliability or the level of the bias in generative AI. So in order to know, we have to set the criteria and create the data that can measure the level of reliability. And then so we need to have a scoring mechanism by asking questions to the AI model. And then we need the global consensus because standards and criteria are made based on the social consensus. So what's important is to define the hate or the bias in AI, and we have to have an academic and the practical dialogue, and we have to also reflect the local circumstances and the very specific context. And also in the corporate level, their product and the services should follow a certain level of the reliability according to a reliability evaluation guidelines. So I wanted to say that LLM bias, fairness, and reliabilities are important, but we have to make sure we have established a criteria, and the established criteria requires a social dialogue and discourse. And when we have a criteria and standards, so we will ask questions to the AI generative models and select a star that is specializing on such AI data required to check the reliability of LLMs. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Mr. Kim. Sorry, I couldn't give you enough time to discuss the topic, but I hope that you can refer to the program book. And Mr. Kim talked about why we need to evaluate the reliability of a LLM, and also in the discussion text he mentioned the sovereign, the AI, and development of AIs given the country context.
카이스트 과학
And the second discussant is Choi Moon-jung, head of KAIST STP Graduate School of Science and Technology Policy. Professor Choi has been very active on studying gender equality and AI, and she is also leading the research coalition of UN Equals. Professor Choi, you have the floor. Well, great to see you all. As was introduced, I am Choi Moon-jung, a professor and working at the KAIST, the Graduate School of Science and Technology Policy. I'd like to extend my gratitude to the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family for giving me this opportunity, and I'm also grateful to the chair of this session, the Professor Kwon Oh-nam. The Graduate School of Administration is specialized in the policies, and our graduate school was established a few years ago, and I believe that the Graduate School of Science and Technology is changing this nation and society as a whole. And today's topic is about AI, which has not been discussed frequently when it comes to gender equality, but I believe that AI is a very important factor. And the first part was about generative AI, and I think that the latter part of Mr. Jo's presentation was about AI talent development. And I gave you these many slides, and those slides would show you how our graduate school is studying the impact of gender on the administrative policies of Korea. So if I give you more information, at KAIST, the technology, social justice in the technology, social justice, measuring what's not measurable. These are the topics of my classes, and I'm more interested in senior citizens in the aging society, but I took interest in gender when I was on a doctoral degree course. I saw many data, and I think that the inequality is at maximum when you are getting old, because inequalities would accumulate when you are in the teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and if you reach your old age, the inequality will be at maximum. And what would be the factors for this injustice inequality? I realized that gender was one of the biggest factors that affect inequality. That is how I took interest in gender, and I analyzed so much data based on gender. And as was introduced by our chair, our Graduate School of Science and Technology Policy worked with Georgia Tech to lead equalis at the UN on ICT sector. So equals researchers would be gathered at the KAIST next month, and we are conducting various researches to see this impact analysis of AI. AI is so important, but how diverse AI talent pool is. That was a very important topic, and how we analyze data. We worked with our students very hard, but the data was very limited. Software industry research result, AI industry fact-finding surveys. These can be various surveys or researches that we can find data about AI. So we also try to find the data over the web to find more about AI. And you can see such data about AI. But what was interesting is there was this 5% ceiling, because there was female AI researchers, but there are so many sectors in AI. But as you go higher, if you look at the highest class, in every vocation or in every sector, there was this 5% ceiling for female experts. Was very strange. Wherever you go, wherever you look at, we didn't have any hypothesis, but if you look at only the top part or top class of every vocation, there was this ceiling of 5% for female participants. And in the AI sector, we met with many researchers, college students, and industry workers to have qualitative interviews and to give you conclusions. Many people would believe that this AI would be more equal to female, but the reality was that it was opposite. AI also has a discrimination against the women, and many women were experiencing the same discrimination in AI as well, similar to other engineering sectors. And many people also had a very skepticism against the female AI researchers. And we also conducted a survey. What was interesting is this: if we look at the Korean type gender equality awareness survey developed by Ministry of Gender Equality, if we look at the awareness gap, was the biggest among those in the late 30s. So those in early 20s or mid 20s, they had a very different awareness, gender-based awareness in the AI compared to those in the late 30s. And many people would believe that AI will give us the benefits like giving more leisure and the free time, but we have to first overcome these safety and fairness issues to use AI in our everyday life. The safety of AI is really important. And then, as was mentioned, there was this rapid increase of surveys on looking at AI diversity and biases because now people are aware that AI can make money, but if they use AI in the wrong manner, they can be heavily criticized by society. So they are aware of this importance of AI fairness and ethics, but those people who are aware of this importance of AI fairness did not exceed 50%. And we made many policy recommendations at the end of our research, and you can see this our guideline to improve the related institutions. And there have been so many changes for the past 4 to 5 years. If we look at this data, or this gender-based data, when we look at the gender-based data, we should also think of the nationality age groups. If you want to have evidence-based policies, then you have to look at various cases. When we are aware of challenges and problems, then you have to come up with various options like A, B, C, D alternatives, and what B would it be effective in Korea or C would be effective in Korea. To find that out, you need to have other types of data sets to have evidence-based policies, and you need another level of data. So these gender-based data should be included in the statistics for national policies. And I want to tell you that when we look at the graduate students or the list of nationalities of our students, there is so much diversity. And right now, our graduates, they want to go abroad. They want to land a job at big tech companies. But the governments, they are talking about brain drains. And when we have an excellent talent, when we are asking them to come back, and if they are females, they have extra concerns when they think of going back to Korea. Your nationality and your gender, you cannot choose that when you are born. You were just given such gender and nationality, and you have to be adapted with what's given to you when you are born. And when in Korea, when males came back to Korea, they have a wider spectrum of choices compared to females. I also gave classes at the U.S. universities, but when I choose my places of vocation, I just looked at how the decision makers of the universities have diverse backgrounds. Because I was one of the immigrants, so I just look at whether the immigrants or the people from other countries were given opportunities to serve as dean or principal of such universities. That was one very important factor for me to make a decision when I choose my next university. Gender is very important, and if you cannot see many women in the leadership position, this can affect also your decision. And I went to college during the this part of the 2000, and 2 decades have passed since then. But I cannot confidently say that Korea has become better when it comes to gender equality. The Economist always announces the glass ceiling index every year, and Korea has this very remarkable feat of economic development for the past 5 decades. And wherever I go, I I find that Korea has a better economy and offers better services, and there have been the scientific development. And among 29 countries, since this glass ceiling index was first announced, the Korea was always one of the lowly ranking economies when it comes to glass ceiling. But glass ceiling can be a very important factor for many female talents. Gender is not about a social service or social welfare. Gender is not about giving benefits to specific groups. I believe gender is closely intertwined with the country's development and socio-economic development. Korea is one of the OECD members and it has higher GDP, but is it really becoming a better country for women? That's the question I want to ask. And in the longer horizon, it is not about race, it is about racism, and it is not about gender, it is about sexism. This means that we have to address sexual discrimination to reach a truly gender equal society. And to enable that, we need evidence-based policies, and evidence-based policies need to be long-term, and it has to be backed by innovative and very equal, fair data. With this, I'd like to conclude my remarks. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Che, Professor Che. You mentioned this infamous 5% ceiling, that you don't have female leaders in the top positions, and this is called leaking a pipeline. And in other words, this is expressed that the water leakage is not the best word to describe this phenomenon. This is more like a close hanger phenomenon. If you look at the leadership top position, you cannot find any females, and this can lead to other types of social issues. And you also mentioned the importance of evidence-based policies. There are so many questions. So many great questions that we have received from the audience, but in the interest of time, we will address 3 questions.
I'm going to read the first question, and as mentioned by Mr. Andrew Strait, the keynote speaker, it is important that we should not have any discrimination in the data set themselves. However, from the corporate perspective, it would be difficult or more complicated and expensive to come up with a data set that do not contain the discrimination, because they need to make a new types of the data sets. So what kind of incentives or compensation mechanism can we make in order to offset these risks? And Mr. Zhou.
상당히 어려운
Thank you for the question. I think this is a very challenging question. Data is the most important element, and garbage in, garbage out. That's the phrase that we hear often to find out the importance of data. If you have garbage data, then you will have a garbage outcome. But securing data of the highest integrity is also very challenging. Any data that can represent all subgroups, it is impossible. So we need to reach an agreement about this. You asked this question from the perspective of businesses. Businesses need to identify the preferences and the taste of customers to provide services best tailored to the taste of customers, and having differentiation is the primary mission for businesses. But the road is clear. We have various data sets with biases, but we cannot use data with biases for marketing or other activities. And there are so many various services, and these different services, they may have different levels of requirements for equality and others in the other, like the healthcare and other sectors that are more closely related to our daily life. They need more data with the highest integrity and ethics. And I think the evaluation would be made by the market. Providing incentives or is not important because we have a consumers in the market, and the consumers or consumerism, they will choose the better businesses and the better services. And other than that, we need to have some regulation. And apart from regulation, we will just leave this up to market mechanism. Thank you so much.
특정 국가
So the second question is, can we secure diversity after making the AI that trained on specific the countries and ethnicity and the gender-based discrimination, and then to contradict the data, and what drawbacks do we have when we take this approach? And CEO Kim, and I'm going to explain another approach that is called AI guardrail. So LLM or the AI's output will be filtered. So safety layer or guardrail is necessary. However, so we have to realize that we need to recognize the biases and discrimination. So the models have to filter such biases and discriminatory concepts, and it is important to filter out in real time. And before that, and reliability, the check is necessary. But as I mentioned, it is important to establish a criteria that define the discrimination or the bias. Then we can label and the data accordingly, and then the training can be done based on these criteria and the labeling. And the drawbacks of such approach will be the latencies will be higher, so maybe some level of censorship should be applied because of too much filtering. The autonomy and the freedom may be undermined. So we need to strike a balance between the two aspects. Thank you very much.
The last question. Development and adoption of AI is having the greatest impact on the telemarketer, sales, and the service workers. And these are the areas where many women are finding their jobs because they can do these works while they are raising or giving birth to their babies. So in the era of AI, with emergence of AI is making this workforce more genderly equal so that women can also work while raising their children? Or is this opening this cutthroat competition where humans have to compete against the AI as well? Well, this is really a philosophical and difficult question. I can just give you an answer for about 1 hour, and I think this is closely related to digital transition, slightly different from the take that we are taking on AI, because AI is not a development stage that can replace workers in the service sector. But we are seeing more kiosk services and more non-face-to-face services. But there is the ASEAN Effect Conference where I am participating very often. And 2 years ago, there was this session hosted by Amazon for workers. And during the session, it talked about the jobs in the era of AI. And because of the child rearing, those people who couldn't work now can work remotely thanks to the technologies. Like this platform economy or a gig economy, they can choose their own work hours, and this opened up more opportunities for jobs. But platform economy has its own problems like job insecurity. But these AI and technology development, they are changing the labor environment substantially. And McKinsey conducted a survey on how much automation will be made in the workforce. And the least automated area is the vocations or jobs that can read emotions and they can share emotions between the people. And I believe that the replacement rate is the highest among software engineers because of the generative AI. But for those people who have to interact with other humans, they will not be replaced by generative AI. It is because some works require face-to-face interaction, and those jobs will not coexist with the child rearing and the care works. So these who will be replaced also be determined by social values. Well, thank you so much, Professor Che. AI industries, how it should evolve with gender equality and inclusivity. I believe that we have to work to create an AI industries that can be very inclusive regardless of gender. AI technology would have a positive impact on society if it can enhance gender equality across society. I hope today's discussion can contribute to our efforts to make AI industries more gender inclusive. I'd like to extend my gratitude to two speakers and two panelists, and especially those in the audience who asked excellent questions. Thank you so much. I'd like to conclude this session. Well, thank you, Mr. Kwon and other participants for the great session.